on the mixtape here on KCQ 89.5 FM Ashland, Oregon, 94.1 FM Medford, Oregon, and streaming online on kskqdjramo. We are here with Dan Soren from 60 Watt Shaman, promoting their new singles, promoting all their music. We're going to talk to everything about to Dan. Dan, how's it going, my friend?
Hey, doing good, man. Happy 420, everybody.
Happy 420, man. Remember, if you're going to be smoking the ganja, they'll get behind the wheel because it'll make you go cowabunga.
Right.
So Dan, 60 Watt Shaman, dude, super awesome band. So many things I can say about this. You have some southern rock in it. You have some blues progression in it. You have an aggressive, powerful voice right over it. I mean, you could put some doom in it, some straight, just there's, for me, I just think about this as like such a rhythm vocal powerhouse where you're constantly getting driven into the ground by your rhythmic progressions, man. And I'm so happy to start talking about your music.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
We need to have you intro the band every time.
well, hey, man. I listen to everything from your LP Ultra Electric that was released in 1998. All the way up to the singles because, I always like to see the growth and the progression of the bands. But you know what, Dan? Before we get into the singles, we can talk about Antidote. We can talk about This World. I want to know a little bit about your background, man. One of my questions I always like to ask is, like, not everybody just, like, woke up. Well, maybe some people woke up and they were just like, all right, I'm gonna have, like, this rock and roll lifestyle, You know what I mean? Because like you have a lyric, rock and roll is the antidote. You know what I mean? So the thing is like, man, at what age did you get your inspiration to want to be a musician? And was it through like a family member? Do you have a dad that gave you old records? Like at what age as a kid or a teenager did you get inspired by this music?
Yeah, I like the same question. It's a great question because I have the same interest. What inspired someone to go off on their musical journey or their artistic journey? When you're thinking about someone that's producing things that inspire you, speak to you in some way. Okay, my journey is obviously unique to me, but I think it's more unique to a time and a place. So I was born out in suburbs outside Washington, D.C., and, at the time, we were, a house full of four kids. I'm the youngest of four.
Okay.
So I'm going to date myself. This is back in the 70s when I was born, and by the time I'm, around 10 years old-ish, you're in the early 80s, and I'm now the inheritor of all of the LPs in my house from my older siblings. Okay. So if you think about the time period, they've got all these albums from the 60s and the 70s and the 80s in the house. Pop music was classic rock. That was what was on the radio. I tried, and I can't remember what the number was. We have a radio station here in D.C., or a defunct, Q107. And if you were the 107th caller, when they played Hey Jude, you would win the stand-up Pac-Man machine.
Yes.
So I'm dating myself, seriously. And we got out of the car when Hey Jude played, and we got on we were on the road, and we threw a quarter in the payphone. There dates me again. We called in, you're like, your car won too, or some shit like that. We're like, oh, we almost won. At any rate, I inherited all this great music, rock music, and that was what was in the house. There was always the piano in the house. I took piano lessons early on, but there was also a guitar. No one played the guitar, but there was a guitar in the house, and I would just fool around on it. Now, I don't know how to really explain the magic of this next moment I'm going to describe. given to me on my next birthday, and I just started to fool around with that thing, getting tones out of it. I sort of got feel around, and I could play a couple of riffs, and that was the beginning. And I just took off from there, man. So I had a lot of good influence from the music that was around me while I was growing up. In the DC area, we've got a vibrant music scene, so there was a lot of concerts and things going on. And I don't really know how and why I wanted to have that guitar, but it changed my life. Before that ever happened, the first music I ever purchased on my own with money that I saved up wherever I found pennies and quarters, things like that. I'm talking a little kid. Was I drove up to my local shopping mall. They had a Waxy Maxi's music store in the mall near my home. Rode up there on my BMX bike with my coins and my dollar bills, and I bought 2 albums. I bought Johnny Cash, and I bought Dolly Parton, and they were both on 8-track cassette tapes.
That's so rad.
That's the first music I ever bought, and it's funny. The first tunes I was ever learning how to play were Jimi Hendrix. I just had some really good foundational exposure to rock and roll music. And, by the time I was getting out of high school, the DC music scene, the Discord Records, punk rock music, this is the home of Minor Threat, Henry Rollins came out of here. So we've got a lot of really cool music just from the scene that was a part of me growing up. And it started to expose me to not just that punk rock, but punk rock from everywhere. And I graduated from punk rock to, here's a really cool story. Shout out to Isaac Hydowski, love you, Isaac. The Hydowskis moved out from San Francisco in like 86 to my hometown. Guess what he brought with him?
What?
Thrash albums, man. We never fucking heard Kill 'Em All, and he brought Kill 'Em All with him. It was his older brother's albums. But when we heard that, that's a game changer. Holy shit. Like, I don't know if I can say that on a radio station.
Oh, it's all good, brother. It's all you can.
But, I just was fortunate enough to get exposed to all the really good rock and roll as it was coming out, and as I was coming up. So that's where my influence comes from.
Dude, that's so badass, dude. Especially like you're talking about, your first couple of records getting cassette tapes, Dolly Parton and Johnny Cash, and then you got like the big brother introducing you to Kill 'Em All, dude. And I'm always extremely envious of that time because like everything I feel like was just such a game changer, getting stacked on top of each other. There's somebody releasing something different. Somebody releasing something different, And
I love it. And there's, look, it is a very cool time, but it also should remind us that great changes, great things that impact us, like culturally, they kind of come out of nowhere. They come when they're least expected, and, it comes because there's a passion and a scene will swell up, and, it'll have the opportunity to be a game changer. It's going to happen again.
Dude. No, that's so awesome, man. This is why I love doing interviews because you listen to the music of the bands and you would never expect that they went through all this, especially you getting your SG and your 10-watt amp. Like, dude, that's like straight out of A Christmas Story, where Ralphie's just wanting at his rifle,
Yes. Thank God the guitars never put my eye out.
Oh man, no, that's so awesome, man. So dude, 60-watt Shaman. Before we get to the music, okay, that's a hell of a name. What inspired 60-watt Shaman? Because I haven't heard that combination together.
That's a tasty little story right there. So, the band, I guess we all have said that the band is officially from '96. Really, where the band formed was, I graduated high school and went right into college in 1990. And went to a little school outside Baltimore called Towson University. And at the time, I had just come out of punk rock high school. I had a little punk rock band in high school, and I rode skateboards. And, we had a really tight-knit scene. So, I was coming out of my local punk rock scene. changes that were happening. But because I was in this freshman dorm, and I'm surrounded by all these other, I was 17 when I graduated and went to college. All these other young people my age, everybody's got, whatever their background is. You're hearing other people's backgrounds. And there was a lot of people who were on my floor that were playing sports. And I was like, dude, that's something, like, I could tell you names of people in bands. I couldn't tell you all of these sports stats from, whatever your favorite team is. And I'm like, well, I'm here in college. I could try out some sports. So I decided I wanted to try to go and play football because, football is America's sport. And I had played when I was a kid. I did make the team, but this is a college team, and, they had scholarships, and the starting positions were going to people that they were spending money on. So I didn't want to play just to be hanging out with the team. I wanted to play ball. So I ended up going to the other side of campus. I run into my boy, and he goes, dude, fuck football. Go play on the rugby team. He points his finger out the window. The rugby team is down there practicing on the field. I go down there, and the coach, this giant 6'6" German man named Chris Schmidt, he just, hey, kid, grabs me, and he throws me into the scrum. 2 weeks later, I'm starting in the scrum as I don't know if anybody out there knows these positions, but inside of a scrum, you throw a ball in there, and you have to step over it with a scrum and pushing against another group of dudes.
Oh my God.
And I was the lead in the scrum. I was the loose head prop. And it's a gnarly game. You're playing, smash mouth contact sports without any pads. It's pretty brutal. I was way into it. And lo and behold, there's a guy on the team with some agnostic front and Chromax stickers on the back of his car. And I just had to say, hey man, what's up? You dig the hardcore? And he's like, yeah, man, and I play in a band. I was like, ooh. And that's where it all began. And me and this dude named Kurt Hubersax, we started a band. It was called Approach. We were playing around Baltimore for about 2 years. And me and Joe Selby, who's the original guitar player from 60 while we're in the band, and Chuck Dukehart was the drummer. And it just ended up somewhere in 96, Joe said, I want to play guitar. And that was the first time we went through a lineup change. We asked, Kurt to let us, proceed and move on with Joe on the guitar. And we ended up then auditioning bass players. I picked up the bass for a couple of months. And the last person that we auditioned was Jim. He'd come from, the dudes in the band had already known him and played music with him, Chuck had. And he came as a known entity with some caution. Careful, watch out for Jim. He ended up becoming one of my best friends. But, so that was it. In 96, we formed the band, and we didn't have a name yet. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going off on this backpack trip. I'm gonna get this Eurail pass and a backpack, and me and my boy Steve are gonna go travel across Europe for about 4 weeks. When I get back, I'll have a name. And it just happened on the journey. The very last day, I'd already split up from Steve. He flew into Amsterdam, and I flew out of Charles de Gaulle in Paris. So I had the afternoon to kill, and I went down to Père Lachaise Cemetery, and I visited Jim Morrison's grave.
Wow.
And it just came on me while I was there. He used to be called the Electric Shaman. I had originally thought about Electric Shaman, and then for whatever reason, we're sitting there at the practice space, and I was like, well, let's just run with 60-watt Shaman. It just came off my tongue. I knew the Shaman needed to be in there somewhere. I just didn't know what it was going to be. And when I said it, the boys liked it, and the rest is history.
Wow, you have a cool story for everything, man. I swear, like that's a hell of a damn story. It wasn't just like, well, I got up and scratched my ass and was like, that was incredible, man. That is so rad, dude.
THEMETALMIXTAPEOR Shaman is a band all about great stories.
I love it, man. All right, man. Let's talk about your singles, man. I wrote that I loved how aggressive and powerful it was. It had a lot of like a southern rock vibe, but it just had like that kind of like doomish, not like angry doom, but like rock and roll doomish, where like it's just a continuous rhythm structure that is just constantly slamming in your face. Like I can see you guys just putting on a hell of a show live, dude. And
oh my God.
Yeah, just because, like, you know, you can hear music and be like, immediately go like, yeah, that's something that's gonna murder live. So, man, so tell me, the ideas, like, in the band room to come up with, like, what was your ideas behind, like, coming up with a certain sound? Because you said, you know, you were in the, like, the hardcore punk scene. I mean, you grew up with Johnny Cash and Dolly Parton, you listened to the Kill 'Em All album. Like bringing everybody into the room, what was the general idea behind your sound? And also, like, with coming out with, like, This World, which is as an amazing vocal intro, and awesome melodies, and same with Antidote, which the video seemed very anti-government. So tell me the idea behind your band and the sound you guys wanted to project in these singles.
You know, it's funny when we first came out, and I found this cassette around here the other day. The very first recording we ever did is only on cassette, and I found only the cover. I couldn't find the cassette that was supposed to be inside. It's somewhere around here somewhere. It's a little recording called Insalubrious. If you have it, you got a little piece of history, because I don't know how many we made. Maybe we pressed 300 of them, and we sold them and gave them away, etc. That was the first recording experience that we had, and we did that with some friends of ours in Carroll County, and we released that music. But it was enough that we had, you know, some sampling of what we could do to help us get our foot in the door for some live shows, etc. And by the time we met Mike Knight of Game 2 Records, Mike was working at Record and Tape Traders, which is a local Maryland record store chain that was, you know, around the region. But they were a major player, you know, so obviously Tower and the big players were the bigger record stores on the scene. But Record and Tape Traders was an institution in the area. So I worked there, Mike worked there, and somehow Mike found us, came out to us live, and he approached us and said, hey man, I'm releasing stoner rock albums, and you guys are like a cool stoner rock band. It was the first time that someone had labeled us, right? Oh, you guys are a stoner rock band. I'm like, I don't know, man, we play rock and roll, whatever. Yeah, I mean, you can get stoned, it's fun and all, but you know, I'm not pigeonholing that I just write stoner music. Like, to me, I didn't like it, is what I'm telling you. All of these subcategories that have grown ever since that time, I mean, there's not just stoner rock, there's stoner metal, there's stoner doom metal, stoner doom rock. Like, there's just like all these subcategories. I used to hate them, and now I love them. And the reason why is exactly what you just described. All of these influences that have, you know, been bombarding me over my lifetime, they're meaningful. And I have a passion for all of those influences. So when I can make them combine together and have its own place, its own seat at the table in a composition, it brings me a lot of joy. So when you can hear, yeah, there's a little bit of doom in there. Like, we hear it too. You know, you're picking up on what we're picking up on, and it's deliberate. The only other thing I will say, based on the thread of the question you were talking about, that live, it would just crush. There's another piece of the puzzle, and this is personal to me. How should I tee this up? Famously, I was watching the Beastie Boys have come out with their book about their Beasties history, and if you know anything about them, they were doing some spoken word and telling the story of the band. And one of the things that Adam Horowitz says is, we love everybody that we ever played with, but every time that we hit the stage, we intended to crush and be the best band that night, regardless of who the headliner was. And I think I would just have to say that this is something that's been a part of the ethos of 60 Watt Shaman a mission to slay every time we hit the stage. So I won't lie, there's a piece of that in the background while we're writing, while we're composing. We want the song to have the most impact it can have. And sounds like people are picking up on it.
Dude, that is so awesome. And I definitely recommend this to anybody listening to the interview here in Ashland, Oregon, and on the West Coast, because this world, I think, is it's like a bigger structured song. And also, what I love about this song is that you let the guitar players go off, which I love the guitar playing going off on both songs. The shredding is just awesome, and I always say riffs are one thing, but you need an important drummer. And your drummer almost had a lot of heavy metal aspects to him, which drove everything in, because you can have a riff and just give it a 1-2 Lars Ulrich pop. By the way, Lars is awesome. but I really loved what you guys did as far as structuring your songs with the vocals, because the vocals never stop, and then you guys have the guitar solos in the right spot, which are just which I've been playing guitar 20 years, and I just love that, dude. And and I would recommend this to anybody, dude. And the thing is, dude, I loved your older music too. Roll the Stone was extremely beautiful. It blew my mind. It was Southern classical rock and roll, which was awesome. For Death by Water was awesome, and Ultra Electric was awesome. And hearing Antidote and This World was such a cherry on the cake, man.
Well, there's more coming, and the thing I would say about kind of the evolution of the sound, and when we started, I was mentioning that early recording. The early recording of all things. So this is a weird thing. Jim wanted to really have a front man. He was really strong about, he knows I'm a guitar player. He knows I write riffs. He knows I'm songwriting, but he really wants me to focus on being a front man. So when we first began, I wasn't playing my guitar. I was participating in the songwriting outside of the room, or writing with them, with a riff I brought that I showed them, or whatever we're doing, but I wasn't playing the guitar in the group. That came, a little bit later. What I was doing was, I'm like, okay, well, while we're burgeoning and we're forming this band, we don't have a lot of an audience yet. We don't have a lot of. It's not as entertaining as I'd like it to be for me, standing there front manning to, not much when we began. So I'm like, well, I want to spice this up. Let's get some percussion in here. When we first started, that album is so full of congas and bongos and shakers and percussion, and you'll hear elements of that throughout 60-Watt Shaman. But what that really began for us was ingraining this groove, a need for the rhythmic groove to drive the songs. And it's been there from the beginning. What ended up happening is, over time, as we moved on from Chuck's playing to Pete Campbell's playing to now Jason Budman's playing, each time that we evolved from one drummer to the next, they were bringing another level of musicianship. Because we're auditioning, we might as well pick the best drummer we can get in the room, right?
Yep.
So we're now stepping up the delivery. Not to take anything away from Chuck, and he's been playing his whole life. He's a great drummer. Pete just brought a different element. He introduced a little bit more metal drumming, and Jason has, taken that another level. To note, Jason Budman is a reggae drummer. So he comes out of reggae and ska as his foundations, and he brings a very unique style to the group when he's that comes through in his heavy rock and roll performance. It's wild, man. These are the best musicians I've ever played with in my life, and we're making great music.
That is so awesome, ladies and gentlemen. Dan Soren from 60-Watt Shaman. Check out the new singles, Antidote and This World. Before we end the interview, can I shoot you just 3 fun questions?
Absolutely.
All right. In a zombie apocalypse, you only could have one weapon to destroy the zombie horde. It can't be a nuclear weapon, and it can't be the cure. What is your one weapon?
Michonne knows what's up, dude. It's gonna have to be what's the name of the sword from Kill Bill? It's got to be the ninja sword. It's got to be the samurai.
Is that like the katana?
The katana. Thank you. That's my weapon of choice, man. You don't have to reload the katana, and as long as that blade is sharp, it's always ready to go. So I'm going with the katana.
All right. If you could choose your death, but it had to be somebody from a horror movie, who would you choose to kill you?
Look, I have seen all of the horrible movies that you have seen and everybody else who's listened to this has seen. So I don't want some slow, torturous murder. I want it to be fast. So let's get some Jason Voorhees and let's just get it done.
Well, what is he going to do?
I want it to look cool. When I'm dead and it's over, it needs to look cool.
What do you think? He's going to machete you, or is he going to just snap your neck?
It's got to be something where it's bled out quick through the heart, something quick death, but then he can hang me up on something.
All right. What is one band that you grew up listening to that you wish got more recognition?
Oh, band that I listen to that I wish got more recognition. I mean, there's a lot of bands in the underground that we've come up with that were great, and I wish they had a lot of recognition beyond what they were able to achieve. That's a really tough one to answer.
I know. I'm a tough guy.
You're looking for, hey, what is the band that I love that didn't quite get the opportunity to make it?
Exactly.
But their songs were so good.
Exactly.
I don't know, man. You stumped me. It's too hard to get into that. Most of the bands that I came up with actually had some modicum of success. So good on them.
You could always just say pass, and I'll shoot you another one.
Yeah, shoot me another one. Let's pass.
All right. What is one thing you're really good at that isn't with music, and one thing you're terrible at that you wish you were better at?
All right. One thing I'm good at that isn't with music. I'm pretty good with the English language, so some of my training. See, that's not fair because I use it to write my lyrics. Look, I got trained also to do graphic design and advertising artwork. So I'm pretty good with Photoshop and Illustrator. I like to hire things out to more professionals who that's their trade and to do artwork for the band. But when we need it, I'm pretty good with the Photoshop. I'm pretty good with the Adobe skills.
What's something you're terrible at you wish you were better at?
What am I terrible at? Could I say that I probably suck at skateboarding right now, and I'd like to get better at skateboarding again?
Hey, man. Hey, I tore my meniscus twice. Once on stage and once on a trampoline. And honestly, if I wouldn't have torn my meniscus when I was 18, I don't even know if I'd be playing music right now or being on the radio.
See, so these things happen for a reason.
Hey, and I wouldn't have been having this conversation with you, my friend.
That's right.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for being on the Metal Mixtape here in Ashland, Oregon. We're going to be releasing this interview next week. 60 Watt Shaman. Check out the new singles Antidote and This World. Dan, you have a beautiful day, my friend, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks so much. Rock on, everybody.
Rock on, peace.